Thanks a million for coming along this morning. I know this time of the year is very, very busy for a lot of people. My name is Lee McGowan, and for my sins today I'm representing the Dublin North East Recovery College, which some of you know covers north area of Dublin, Louth and Meath in particular. I'm excited to be opening this thing today. It was kind of an idea that initially got generated over in a strange country called Scotland at a very similar event that's going to take place today, stimulated by the Scottish Recovery Network, by Frank, who you're going to meet very shortly, and John, who some of you already met, who coordinates our recovery college. That kind of morphed into a wider discussion with ARI, Advancing Recovery in Ireland, who a lot of you who are here today already have an understanding about that, and from other people from outside of kind of the south of Ireland. ARI is a kind of an organisation that evolved to try and create a recovery-orientated perspective and practices within the mental health services across the 26 counties of Ireland. So that conversation then developed alongside with ARI, and it turned out that as a partnership of the three, we felt that this event here today could bring together people not only from a certain part of the country, but hopefully from all over the country and from further afield. And the key thing we're going to talk about really, well, you'll decide what we will talk about. We know what we're going to ask you to talk about. And that is, the original question was in Scotland, last November I think was it, was if recovery colleges are the answers, what is the question? Now as we've grown and as the partnership has kind of expanded, the question has kind of changed slightly. And some of you will be wondering what this wonderful artist is doing over there on the right hand side. I can read it, which is great because my notes don't tell me what the question is today. If recovery education is the answer, what is the question? So that's what we're going to discuss here today over the next several hours. And you will see people going around taking pictures. You will see the fact that we're videoing this. We are recording a lot of what's going on from a graphic illustration point of view, all of which may possibly feature anywhere. And as we know, in today's global society, anywhere could be anywhere. So we'd particularly say to people who don't want their photographs to be publicly available to approach anybody today who's taking photographs. Those of you who are on video have already given away your rights to anonymity by agreeing to present, so sorry about that. You are being videoed. We take it that if you don't like it, you'll have put on a special face and nobody will recognize you. I have a couple of messages from people. Some people snuck in the back door, which meant you came in the front part of the hotel and came down the back corridor, which means you haven't signed in, so we don't know who you are. And it also means we're not sure if you've got any weird dietary tastes. So please see Jackie or Paddy kind of at the back left-hand side from me if you haven't signed in. That would be brilliant from our point of view. Also, for those of you who are facilitating at the tables and feel under pressure to allocate a note taker, I'm going to take that pressure away, and I'm just going to remind all the tables that your facilitators will be asking the table for somebody to take notes, just so we can kind of get an idea of what's been talked about, and also so that we can record certain information. Facilitators will talk more about that later on. And the last message from me is learn how to write, Liam, because I can't. Oh, sorry, no. At coffee time at 3 o'clock today, if you could go back to the registration desk and we'll give you your car park tickets to make sure you can get out of here. We can't give them to you before in case you decide to leave early. Is that a coercive? Yeah, okay. Okay. The important thing is I've acknowledged it. I'd like to pass over now to Frank, who's going to take us through the major part of this day. And it's a great pleasure to invite Frank from the Scottish Recovery Network to facilitate this day. Cheers, Frank.
Thank you very much, Liam. And thank you, John, for all the work that you put into today. it's a great pleasure for me to be here all the way from Scotland. I'm here with colleagues from the Moray Wellbeing Hub who are sitting trying to hide. No, they're not hiding. There we are. Heidi. Heidi cannot hide, and Ewan there. As I say, it's a real great pleasure to be here. Our original event way back in November, October, I can't remember exactly when it was important for us because there was a number of drivers that we felt were pushing us towards a model which wasn't necessarily being developed by peers or within communities. And that's the reason why we held that meeting. And the reason why I'm here today is to repay John and Liam and the other people who actually participated in that day. And that's the way good recovery education works. You do something for me, I'll do something for you in return. So this is a reciprocal arrangement. Now, John actually is very effective at getting money out of people who don't want to give money. So it's very unusual for me to be here having contributed not only in terms of the programme but also financially to this event. Now, the reason why that's important to us is that we know that we will learn enormous amounts from your system and we'll be able to take some of that back to Scotland to help our system. We will reciprocate and bring that back to here as well. There are lots of things that we can learn from one another. And for us, the important thing about recovery is it's not an end point, as I'm sure you're aware. It's a lifelong learning thing. Now, in Scotland, we don't have recovery that it sits in, well, we're aiming towards not having recovery that sits in a particular part of the spectrum. And for my organisation, we talk about recovery being for everybody in every community. Because the skills that are important in recovery are skills that are important for everybody every day. And I think if there is one message I want to put across today, that is the message. The other important thing, I think, from our experience has been how important it is to recognise the inherent skills in individuals as well as within communities. And if you're talking about recovery education, that's where your resources are. Now, you might think that those are cost-free resources. They're not. They do have a cost. And those costs are repaid in reciprocation, which is what I'm doing today. So I am living the principles of our recovery model in Scotland by coming back and trying to give back what was given to us so kindly by John and his colleagues. We've been around since 2004 or thereabouts, and I know from conversations I've had at this table and elsewhere that people look at Scotland and think, look how far you have come. And there is a point we get to where we start to think that actually, because we're doing this all the time, it doesn't feel like it's new anymore, and we don't really believe the press that we hear from outside. So it is nice to hear all of that, but we also know we have a long way to go as well. But there are some countries who have engaged with us in the last 2 years or so who are engaging with us to try and take that extra step, to move further than we did and we have done. We've taken 14, 15 years to get where we've got to. I don't think that's necessary in Ireland. I don't think it's necessary in Sweden, who we're going to go and see at the end of this month. And I don't think it's necessary in Finland or any of these other countries who hold us up in such high esteem. But the reason they hold us up in such high esteem is that we based our recovery model on people. And that's where it all begins, and it's also where it all ends. That sounds a bit like a sermon, I'm sorry. I didn't intend to do that. Okay, as I say, it's a great pleasure to be here. I think there'll be lots of really interesting conversations around the table. The conversation cafe model, which we're going to use today, is one that we use in SRN all the time. It provides an opportunity to have genuine conversations. So what I would ask you to do is to, whatever hat you're wearing when you're here today, as much as possible, can you take it off and leave it to one side? Because you're a human being around the table. What you contribute should be about you as much as it is about your position within society. That's really important today. The other thing that we're really interested in SRN as well is good dialogues. And good dialogues are not about saying what you said is wrong or what I said is right, but building on conversations over time. So the sheets that you've got on the tables in front of you just now should help you do that. So record the information, listen intently to what people are saying to you, contribute and add to what they're saying, and build a good dialogue over the next few hours, and you will gain the benefit of it. So the programme for today is appearing behind me, which is great. I don't have to do anything about it. We have conversation cafes at the beginning, and the way the day has been broken up, we've got the initial element, which is to try to define what is the question here. And the reason why we had that with our event in Scotland was that we were rushing to an answer before we realised what it was that we were trying to solve. And I think that's why this structure is really important today. So the first part is, what is the question that we're trying to define? And there may be different questions that come up from all of these groups, and that's fine. We're not looking for a single answer necessarily. We're looking for good conversations, and those good conversations are really important. The first session will last between about 40, 45 minutes or thereabouts. I'm not sure if John will give a shout or I'll give a shout at that 40-minute point. And the points that you've noted down on the sheets that are on your table, we'll ask you to vote upon. So we're going to use something called nominal group technique. I know what that's called, but that's what it's called. But you've got some stickies, and we'll ask you to vote on the key points that you want to feed back. Because clearly we've got quite a lot of people in the room, and we want to try and limit you to 2 key points. You won't lose anything that's on the sheets, because they'll be part of the write-up at the end of this session. But in terms of feedback, it makes it a little bit quicker, and it can prevent some of those things that no doubt will happen anyway, which is, we said what that group earlier said, so that we've got proper conversation. Once we've got that feedback, we'll take some discussion right across the groups, and they'll be facilitated, and it'll add on to the conversations that we had previously. So I think this morning will be really quite interesting. It should be quite vigorous, so put as much into it as you can. And then we're going to break for lunch. Sorry, we're not going to break for lunch. We're going to go into the Pecha Kucha. Now, I call it Pecha Kucha, but apparently my comms person tells me it's Pecha Kucha. Did everybody else get that as well? No, you didn't get that memo. Apparently, if you think of mana mana, it's Pecha Kucha. So this is actually, it can feel very stressful delivering these things. You need to be very focused. So I think all of those who are going to present, my heart goes out to you. I have tried it, and it's very difficult. I'm actually working without notes just now, and working without notes and things going on behind you is a bit of a challenge. But it's very useful because you can really focus down on what's important about what your presentation is. And what I would say to you presenters is that we are all rooting for you. We all know what it's like. So you're in amongst friends. So once those presentations are over, we'll break for lunch, which we'll have for an hour of high-quality food, I understand, and networking. And you'll get an opportunity to ask questions of the Pecha Kucha presenters and people like myself and whatever, and please do seek us out and ask those questions. And then in the afternoon, we'll have a discussion around what the answer is to the question that we posed in the morning. So how do we make the next steps collectively? How do we all take part in what the next steps should be in terms of recovery education? These are exciting times right across the world. And there are opportunities in Ireland to do something slightly different from everybody else. And the reason why that's important, why I think it's really important, is because we know that in Scotland we have to do things differently in some of the communities that we're working in, because the resources are different. We also know in Scotland that front-loading things with money sometimes means that when that money goes, so does the resource. So we are really interested in how we can build things into communities that are based on people. Money is important. It doesn't happen for free, but people are the central point, really, here. And at the end of the day, once we broke for coffee, when some of you may be allowed to leave if you get your parking ticket, we'll have a Q&A, which, again, you'll get an opportunity to direct questions to, I'm assuming, the Pecha Kucha presenters and others. So it's a nice rounded day. You've got the beginnings of what the question is. You've got an opportunity to see some examples from Ireland and from Scotland. And then you've got an opportunity to try and hone down what the answer might be for yourselves in Ireland. And then you've got, at the end, some opportunities to try and fine-tune what it is you, as individuals and collectively, can do in your local areas.